I faked a federal audit. My greedy brother and his wife dismantled their own lives in 48 hours. My brother Soren has always operated under the assumption that the world is a resource to be extracted from rather than a place to be participated in honestly. He is charming in the way that certain predatory things are charming. Smooth-surfaced, quick to smile, calibrated to disarm. For most of our adult lives I tolerated this about him because the extraction was aimed at other people and because family loyalty is a habit that takes a long time to identify as optional. That changed when he and his wife Margot went after our mother. My mother is 71, recently widowed, and trusting in the particular way of people who have spent decades in a happy marriage and have therefore never needed to develop strong defenses against manipulation. Soren and Margot had been living with her for 8 months under the stated premise of helping her adjust to life alone after my father's death. What they were actually doing, I discovered through a combination of bank statements my mother showed me without fully understanding their implications, was systematically redirecting portions of her fixed income into a joint account they had quietly opened in her name alongside Margot's. Small amounts. Regular interval, the architecture of a long con built by people who were confident they would never be scrutinized. I'm a compliance officer by profession. I scrutinize things for a living. When I understood what I was looking at, I did not go to Soren directly. I did not call a family meeting. I did not give him the opportunity to prepare a defense or move money or construct an alibi. I went home, sat at my kitchen table for approximately 3 hours and designed a trap. I contacted Soren by phone, using a tone of barely controlled panic that I practiced until it felt completely natural. I told him I had been contacted by a federal financial crimes unit regarding irregularities in accounts connected to our mother's estate, following our father's death. I told him an investigator had visited my office and asked questions that suggested they were already deep into the documentation. I told him I was scared and confused and needed to know, urgently, whether he had any knowledge of anything that might be relevant. The silence on his end lasted exactly 4 seconds. I counted. He said no. Immediately, smoothly, reflexively. No, of course not. What kind of question was that? His voice had shifted into a register I recognized, the one he used when he was calculating, rather than responding. I let the silence stretch after his denial. Then I said the investigator had specifically mentioned account activity from the previous 6 months and had asked about a secondary account in our mother's name. I said I had the investigator's card and could share it if he wanted to reach out directly to clarify his position. He said that wouldn't be necessary. Over the following 48 hours, I did nothing except go to work and answer my phone. What Soren and Margot did in those same 48 hours I have assembled from subsequent evidence and from my mother's account of events in her own home. They attempted to reverse the account transfers, which created a flagged transaction record that they did not know would be flagged. They had 2 extended whispered arguments in the kitchen that my mother could hear through the wall. Margot called her own parents for money, for reasons she declined to explain clearly. Soren, in what I can only describe as a catastrophic overreaction, contacted a criminal defense attorney which created a paper trail of its own and cost him a consultation fee of several $100s to receive advice about a federal investigation that did not yet formally exist. On the morning of the 3rd day, I called a genuine contact I have through my professional network, a forensic accountant who consults with regulatory agencies, and explained what I had actually discovered about the account activity. She made 2 calls. By the afternoon, the irregularities I had identified had been submitted through a proper reporting channel. The investigation that Soren had been frantically preparing for as a hypothetical became, within the span of a working day, a real one. He called me that evening, voice stripped of all its usual smoothness, and said he thought I had told him there was already an investigator involved. I said I had told him I was scared and needed to know if he knew anything relevant. I said I was still scared. I said I still needed to know if he knew anything relevant. He hung up. My mother's accounts have been frozen pending the review, which her actual bank has been extraordinarily cooperative about facilitating given the documentation provided. She is living with me in the meantime. Last night she made soup from a recipe she has been making since before I was born, and we ate it at my kitchen table, and she told me a story about my father from their first year of marriage that I had never heard before. She laughed in the middle of it and had to stop and compose herself, and then laughed again. Soren and Margot vacated her house within 72 hours of the real inquiry beginning. They left a bag of recycling by the back door that nobody had taken out. My mother asked me last week whether I thought Soren would be all right. I told her I thought he would receive exactly what he had carefully arranged for himself. She nodded slowly, the way she does when she is deciding whether a thing is comforting or not. Then she asked if there was more soup. There was. There always is, when you're in a house where someone actually wants you there.